The meeting room was enormous, with ceilings so high that clouds seemed to form near the top. Ambassador Daniel Hayes stood at the center, looking up at the representatives of 12 different alien species. Each one sat on platforms that floated in the air, arranged in a circle around him. The air smelled strange, like copper mixed with something sweet that Daniel could not identify. This was the third time Daniel had come to this place. The third time he had asked the Galactic Council to let Earth join the fight against the Hive. The third time he expected them to say no. Beside Daniel stood Commander Lisa Brennan. She wore her military uniform with pride, every metal polished and perfect. Her hands stayed at her sides, but Daniel could see her jaw muscles working. She was angry, just like him. Just like everyone on Earth who knew what was happening out here in the wider galaxy. The Hive was coming. Everyone knew it. The Hive was a swarm of living ships that ate entire planets. They had destroyed dozens of worlds already, consuming everything in their path. They moved from system to system like locusts, leaving nothing behind but dead rocks floating in space. The Galactic Council had been fighting them for 2 years now. The Council was losing. That is why Daniel had come here 3 times. Earth wanted to help. Humanity had ships, weapons, and soldiers ready to fight. But every time Daniel asked, the Council said no. Today would be no different. Vexthar spoke first. He was the representative of the Kryn species, a race of beings that looked like giant insects made of living crystal. His voice sounded like wind chimes in a storm. Ambassador Hayes, we have reviewed your proposal again. The answer remains unchanged. Humanity cannot join this war. Daniel took a deep breath. May I ask why? We have shown you our weapons. We have proven our ships can travel at faster than light speeds. Our soldiers are trained and ready. Another representative spoke up. Her name was Sela, and she belonged to the Zentari people. The Zentari looked like humans, but their skin was covered in scales that changed color with their emotions. Right now, Sela's scales showed patterns of purple and orange. Daniel had learned that meant she felt superior and amused. Your species is too young, Sela said. You have only been in space for 300 years. We have been exploring the stars for 10,000 years. You do not have the experience needed for this kind of war. Captain Ryan Mitchell stood with the other human officers near the back of the room. He could not stay quiet anymore. With respect, experience does not matter if you are losing. The Hive has taken 3 more systems in the last month. You need every ship you can get. Vexthar's crystal body flashed with red light. Daniel knew that meant anger. You prove my point, Captain. Your species is too aggressive, too quick to speak without thinking. The Hive operates as one mind, perfectly coordinated. They communicate through thoughts alone, moving as a single organism. Your people are individuals. You argue. You disagree. You cannot fight an enemy that thinks as one when your own forces cannot even maintain proper respect in a council meeting. Lisa Brennan stepped forward. Our individualism is our strength, not our weakness. We bring different ideas, different tactics. That is how humans solve problems. A different alien spoke now, one that looked like a floating jellyfish made of light. His name was impossible for humans to pronounce, so everyone called him Glow. The Hive does not care about your ideas or tactics. They care about eating. Your bodies are soft. You have no natural armor, no telepathic abilities, no biological weapons. You are made of meat and water. The Hive will consume you in minutes. Daniel felt his patience running out. For 6 months, he had listened to reasons why humans were not good enough, not strong enough, not smart enough, not old enough. He was tired of it. Then what do you suggest we do? Daniel asked. The Hive is moving toward our section of space. In 1 year, maybe 2, they will reach the Sol system. Should we just wait to die? Vexthar made a sound that might have been a sigh. You should prepare evacuation protocols. When the Hive reaches your system, you will need to leave. Find a new home far away from the Hive's path. The Council will provide maps of unclaimed systems where you can relocate. The room went silent. Every human in the chamber stared at the Council representatives with the same expression. It was not just anger now. It was something deeper, something colder. You want us to abandon Earth? Lisa said quietly. The planet where humanity was born. Our home. You want us to just leave it to be eaten? Sayla's scales shifted to a calmer blue. It is regrettable, but necessary. Earth is not important enough to defend. The Council must prioritize systems with larger populations and more strategic value. Your planet holds only 12 billion humans. Other worlds hold trillions. Daniel looked at Lisa, then at Ryan, then at the other officers in their delegation. Lieutenant Jack Turner, Colonel Amy Parker, and a dozen others. They had all volunteered to come here and beg for help. They had all hoped that the great Galactic Council would see reason. They had all been wrong. Very well, Daniel said. His voice was calm now, cold and controlled. Earth withdraws its offer of assistance. We will not ask again. Humanity will handle its own defense. Vexthar's crystal body flashed with colors Daniel did not recognize. You understand that means you will fight alone? When the hive comes to your system, do not call for help. Do not expect the Council to rescue you. You have been warned. Daniel nodded slowly. We understand perfectly. As the human delegation walked out of the chamber, they could hear some of the aliens making sounds. Among some species, those sounds meant laughter. They were laughing at Earth. Laughing at the idea that humans thought they could defend themselves. Lisa walked beside Daniel as they moved through the long corridors of the Council station. The walls were made of something that looked like glass but felt warm to the touch. What do we do now? She asked. Daniel stopped walking and turned to face his team. Every single person looked at him with the same question in their eyes. What happens next? 3 months had passed since the Council rejected Earth's offer. 3 months since Daniel Hayes and his team had returned home with bad news. 3 months since humanity had decided to face the hive alone. The Sol system looked different now. Anyone traveling through space near Earth would have been amazed at the transformation. Construction yards floated in orbit around Earth, Mars, and several of Jupiter's moons. Thousands of workers in spacesuits moved between the massive structures, building ships day and night. The work never stopped. Admiral Kyle Jennings stood on the bridge of the Defiant, Earth's new flagship. The ship was not beautiful like the organic vessels the Council races used. The Defiant looked like a weapon, all straight lines and angular armor plating. Its hull was dark gray, covered with sensor arrays and weapons platforms. 20 railgun turrets lined its spine, each one capable of firing metal slugs at speeds that could crack a planet. Status report, Kyle said to his chief engineer. Nicole Wade looked up from her datapad. She had been working for 16 hours straight, like most of the crew. Everyone worked long hours now. There was no time to waste. The railgun arrays are fully operational on all major vessels. The Martian construction yards finished the last batch of drone carriers yesterday. We now have 4,000 combat drones ready for deployment. Kyle nodded. 4,000 drones. It sounded like a lot, but he knew the hive traveled in fleets of tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands. The numbers made his head hurt when he thought about them too much. What about the destroyers? Kyle asked. 15 are complete and running trials. Another 20 will be ready in 2 weeks. The factories on Mars are producing faster than we expected. Nicole paused, then smiled slightly. Turns out humans are really good at building things when we are scared and angry. Kyle could not argue with that. Fear and anger had motivated humanity before. During the World Wars, during the Cold War, during every crisis in human history, people had found ways to build faster and better when survival was at stake. This was no different, except the enemy was not other humans. This time, the enemy wanted to eat everyone. On Mars, inside a military base built into the side of a canyon, Colonel Brandon Chase watched test results on a holographic screen. He was in charge of humanity's most secret project, something they called the Swarm Protocol. The Council relied on large warships and biological advantages. Humanity had studied the hive and decided on a different approach. Run the simulation again, Brandon ordered. The hologram lit up with thousands of small dots, each one representing a single drone. As Brandon and his team watched, the dots moved together in patterns that looked almost like a living thing. They flowed around obstacles, reformed after being scattered, and overwhelmed simulated enemy forces through sheer numbers and coordination. Commander Emma Flores stood next to Brandon. She was the lead specialist in artificial intelligence, the smartest computer scientist Earth had. Her job was to make sure the drones could think and learn. The machine learning algorithms are performing beyond our expectations. Each drone learns from every other drone's experience. When one unit encounters an enemy tactic, all units learn how to counter it within seconds. Brandon watched the simulation and felt something he had not felt in months: hope. The Hive is a telepathic collective. They share thoughts instantly across their entire swarm. The Council tried to fight them with bigger ships and tougher armor. But we built our own collective, one made of machines and code. One that thinks even faster than biology allows. Emma smiled. The Council said we lack telepathic coordination. They forgot that humans have been communicating across vast distances for centuries without telepathy. Radio, satellites, computers, quantum networks. Our technology does not depend on biology. It depends on engineering. Below the surface of Earth, deep under the Atlantic Ocean, another team worked in a secure research facility. Dr. Kate Sullivan led a group of scientists who had been studying pieces of destroyed Hive ships. The Hive was organic, made of living tissue that could repair itself and adapt to weapons. But Kate and her team had found a weakness. The Hive coordinates through biological signals, Kate explained to her research team. They use specific frequencies to communicate between ships. It is like how neurons in a human brain send electrical signals. If we can disrupt those frequencies, we can break their coordination. Lieutenant Alex Morgan, a young officer assigned to Kate's team, looked at the data with interest. So we jam their signals? Make them deaf to each other? Exactly, Kate said. The Hive's greatest strength is that they move as one mind. Take that away, and they become thousands of confused individual ships. Ships that will attack anything nearby, including each other. The team had built prototype signal jammers and tested them on captured Hive tissue. The results were promising. The organic matter went crazy when exposed to the jamming frequencies, trying to attack itself. If they could scale this technology up and use it in battle, the Hive would be fighting blind. Back in orbit around Earth, Admiral Kyle Jennings called a meeting of all senior officers. They gathered in a conference room aboard the Defiant. The room held 30 people, every one of them essential to Earth's defense. Admirals, generals, engineers, scientists, and tactical specialists. Kyle stood at the head of the table and activated a holographic display. It showed the Sol system and the predicted path of the Hive invasion. Intelligence estimates the Hive will reach our outer system in 5 to 6 months. When they arrive, we expect a scout force first, probably a few hundred ships. If we cannot stop the scouts, the main invasion fleet will follow. That fleet could contain tens of thousands of vessels. Everyone in the room already knew this information, but hearing it said out loud still made the situation feel real, terrifying, impossible. Captain Ryan Mitchell spoke up. What does the Council say now? Have they changed their position? No, Kyle said. The Council is too busy trying to save their own core worlds. They have written us off. Some of their news broadcasts are already calling Earth a lost cause. They expect the Hive to consume us, then move deeper into Council space. Some Council strategists actually seem happy about that. They think Earth will slow the Hive down, give them more time to prepare. The room filled with angry muttering. Humanity was being used as bait. Colonel Amy Parker slammed her hand on the table. Let them think that. Let them believe Earth will fall. When we win, they will have to admit they were wrong about us. If we win, someone said quietly. Kyle turned to face the entire room. We will win. Not because we are stronger than the Hive. Not because we have some special biological advantage. We will win because humanity does not give up. Every species the Hive has fought tried to match the Hive's strengths. They built bigger ships, tougher armor, stronger weapons. They all failed. We are not going to fight the Hive the way they expect. We are going to use speed, technology, and tactics. We are going to think differently. Emma Flores pulled up another display. Our drones are individually weak. A single Hive ship could destroy a dozen drones without effort. But we are not sending a dozen drones. We are sending thousands, tens of thousands, and every single one of them is learning and adapting in real time. The alarm woke Kyle Jennings from a brief sleep. He had been in his quarters for only 2 hours, the first rest he had taken in 3 days. Now the sound of the emergency klaxon filled the ship, and Kyle was already putting on his uniform before he fully opened his eyes. "Bridge, report," Kyle said into his communicator as he rushed through the corridors of the Defiant. Lieutenant Megan Carter's voice came back immediately. "Admiral, we have contact. The Hive has broken through the Council's defense line in the Andromeda sector. They are 3 systems away from us now." Kyle reached the bridge and took his position in the command chair. The main view screen showed a tactical map of nearby space. Red markers indicated Hive positions. Blue markers showed Council forces. Most of the blue markers were moving away from the red ones. The Council was retreating. "Show me the live feeds from the Andromeda sector," Kyle ordered. The screen changed to show footage from Council news broadcasts. Kyle watched as massive organic ships, each one the size of a small moon, tore through Council defensive lines. The Council ships looked like works of art, beautiful curves and glowing energy fields. The Hive ships looked like tumors, dark and pulsing with veins of sickly light. The beautiful ships exploded one by one as the Hive overwhelmed them. Emma Flores arrived on the bridge, still wearing her engineering jumpsuit. She had been working in the drone control center when the alarm sounded. "How bad is it?" "Bad," Kyle said. "The Council has lost the Andromeda sector. The Hive is moving faster than predicted. They could be here in weeks instead of months." Before Emma could respond, another alert sounded. "Admiral," Megan said, "incoming transmission from the Galactic Council, priority channel." Kyle almost smiled. Now they wanted to talk. "Put them through." The view screen changed to show Vexithar, the Kryn representative who had rejected Earth's help 3 times. His crystal body looked dim, and his voice lacked the confidence it had before. "Admiral Jennings, the Council requests Earth's assistance with manufacturing. We have lost several production facilities in the Andromeda sector. We need ships, weapons, and supplies." Kyle leaned back in his chair. "Ambassador Vexthar. 3 months ago, I was Ambassador Hayes, asking for the privilege of fighting alongside the Council. You told me humanity was too primitive, too weak, too young. You told us to prepare evacuation protocols and abandon our home. Do you remember that conversation?" Vexthar's body flickered. "The situation has changed. We underestimated the Hive's advance. Now we must work together." "Work together," Kyle repeated. "The Council has 3,000 years of military tradition. Earth has 300 years of spaceflight. Yet somehow, in your hour of need, you come to us asking for help. Why should I give you anything?" Sela appeared on the screen next to Vexthar. Her scales showed colors Kyle had not seen before, patterns of dark blue and gray. "Admiral, billions will die if the Hive is not stopped. Surely humanity does not want that blood on its hands." Kyle stood up from his chair and walked closer to the view screen. "You are right. Billions will die. That is why every ship we build, every weapon we manufacture, every soldier we train stays here in the Sol system. Not to save the Council, not to rescue civilizations that mocked us, to defend Earth." Vexthar's voice became sharp. "You would let entire worlds fall out of petty revenge?" "Not revenge," Kyle said calmly. "Mathematics. Earth has enough resources to defend one star system very well, or to defend many star systems very poorly. We choose to concentrate our forces where they matter most. Our home." Sela's scales turned red. "You are condemning millions to death." "No," Kyle replied. "The Council condemned those millions when they rejected our help, when they told us we were not good enough to stand beside them. Now you can evacuate those millions to your core worlds, or you can defend them with the forces you have. But Earth ships stay in the Sol system. If the Hive comes here, they will learn what humans do when we say fine. I will do it myself." Kyle signaled for Megan to end the transmission. The screen went dark, leaving the bridge crew in silence. Captain Ryan Mitchell finally spoke. "Some people on Earth will call that selfish." "Probably," Kyle agreed, But those people are not military strategists. We have enough ships to protect Earth or to fail protecting everybody. I choose Earth. 2 weeks passed. The Hive continued advancing through the Andromeda sector. More Council worlds fell. More refugees fled toward the galactic core. News broadcasts showed Council fleets in full retreat, abandoning outer colonies to save their homeworlds. It was chaos. Then Earth's long-range sensors detected something. Commander Emma Flores was the first to see it. She had been monitoring the sensor arrays around Jupiter when the alert appeared on her screen. Admiral, we have incoming ships. Unknown configuration. They are still in the outer system near the Kuiper Belt. Kyle rushed to the sensor station. How many? Emma's fingers moved across her console, pulling up detailed scans. Her face went pale. Approximately 500 vessels. Organic composition. Life signs consistent with Hive biology. The bridge went silent. This was it. The Hive had arrived. Sound general quarters, Kyle ordered. All ships to battle stations. Launch all reconnaissance drones. I want to know everything about these ships before they get close enough to be dangerous. Alarms sounded throughout the Defiant and across the entire human fleet. Ships that had been in dock for repairs scrambled to prepare for combat. Crews that had been sleeping woke to the sound of war drums. This was not a drill. The enemy was here. Colonel Brandon Chase contacted Kyle from Mars. Admiral, request permission to activate the swarm protocol. Granted, Kyle said. Prepare all drones for deployment, but do not launch yet. I want them to get closer first. Kate Sullivan's voice came through from Earth. Admiral, the signal jammers are ready. We can activate them on your command. Stand by, Kyle said. Tactical. Give me a battle plan. Ryan Mitchell pulled up a holographic display showing the outer Sol system. Red markers indicated the Hive scout fleet's position. Blue markers showed human forces. The Hive is moving in standard formation. They expect us to meet them in open space, ship to ship. That is how the Council fights. We are not going to do that. What do you propose? Kyle asked. Ryan zoomed in on the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. We let them come to us. We use the asteroids for cover and ambush points. We hide our drones in the debris fields. When they enter the belt, we activate the signal jammers and launch everything at once. They will be confused, surrounded, and unable to coordinate. Kyle studied the plan. It was risky. If the Hive adapted faster than expected, the human fleet would be trapped in the asteroid belt with nowhere to run. But fighting in open space against superior numbers was suicide. At least this plan gave them an advantage. Make it happen, Kyle ordered. All ships move to positions in the asteroid belt. Hide among the larger rocks. Drones deploy to predetermined ambush points but remain powered down until I give the order. The Hive is used to fighting enemies that meet them head-on. Let us show them. So, the Hive scout fleet moved through space like a living organism. 500 ships, each one pulsing with bioluminescent light, traveled in perfect formation. They had no need for radio communications or computer networks. Every ship was part of a single consciousness, sharing thoughts and coordinating movements instantly through telepathy. On the bridge of the Defiant, hidden behind a large asteroid in the belt between Mars and Jupiter, Admiral Kyle Jennings watched the enemy approach. The main view screen showed sensor data, overlaid with visual tracking. Each red dot represented a Hive vessel. 500 dots moved steadily toward the asteroid belt where the human fleet waited. Distance? Kyle asked quietly. 3 million kilometers and closing, Lieutenant Megan Carter replied. Current speed suggests they will enter the belt in 15 minutes. Kyle opened a channel to all human ships. All vessels maintain radio silence, power signatures to minimum. We are hunters waiting for prey. Do not move until I give the order. Around the asteroid belt, 80 human warships sat silent in the darkness. Each one was positioned near a large rock, using the asteroid's mass to hide their heat signatures. The ships were not beautiful, but they were deadly. Angular hulls covered in armor plating. Railgun turrets aimed at empty space. Missile tubes loaded and ready. Commander Emma Flores worked at her station, monitoring the drone network. 4,000 combat drones floated throughout the asteroid belt, powered down and drifting like debris. Each drone was small, barely larger than a car, but packed with explosives and equipped with ion thrusters for quick movement. Drone network is in position, all units responding to encrypted signals. Kate Sullivan's voice came through a secure channel from Earth. Signal jammers are ready. We have 40 satellites in orbit around the outer system, each one equipped with quantum interference generators. When activated, they will flood the area with signals designed to disrupt Hive telepathic frequencies. Stand by, Kyle said. He watched the red dots move closer. 12 minutes. 10 minutes. The Hive ships showed no sign of slowing down or changing course. They moved with the confidence of predators who had never been challenged. Captain Ryan Mitchell contacted Kyle from his destroyer, the Relentless. Admiral, they are entering the belt now. Permission to activate jamming? Kyle watched as the first Hive ships crossed into the asteroid field. They continued in perfect formation, weaving between the larger rocks without breaking stride. They expected resistance eventually, but not yet. Not this early in the system. Wait, Kyle said. Let them get deeper. I want them surrounded. 2 more minutes passed. More Hive ships entered the belt. 300 now. 400. Kyle counted silently in his head, waiting for the right moment. Waiting for the perfect trap. Now, Kyle said. Activate jammers. Launch all drones. All ships open fire. Across the outer Sol system, 40 satellites activated simultaneously. They broadcast powerful interference signals across the frequencies Kate Sullivan's team had identified. The effect was immediate. On the Hive ships, the telepathic coordination that had guided them for centuries suddenly disappeared. 500 separate consciousnesses found themselves alone for the first time. Ships that had been moving in perfect formation began to drift. Some vessels fired their weapons at random, hitting nearby asteroids or other Hive ships. Confusion spread through the fleet like a virus. At the same moment, 4,000 drones powered up and began moving. They emerged from hiding spots among the asteroids, small and fast, converging on the Hive fleet from every direction. The drones did not try to destroy the massive Hive ships alone. Instead, they worked in coordinated groups targeting engines, weapons, and sensory organs. The Defiant and the rest of the human fleet opened fire. Railguns hurled metal slugs at relativistic speeds. Unlike energy weapons that the Hive had learned to absorb, solid projectiles punched through organic hulls with devastating force. Each impact created explosions of flash-frozen fluid and torn tissue. Kyle watched the tactical display as chaos consumed the Hive formation. All ships target their command vessels. They will be the largest ships and the ones trying to restore order. The human fleet moved through the asteroid field with practiced precision. They had trained for months in these conditions, learning to use the rocks for cover and concealment. The Hive ships, confused and isolated, made easy targets. Colonel Amy Parker commanded the carrier Valkyrie from a position near Jupiter's orbit. Her ship carried no railguns or missiles. Instead, it held 2,000 additional drones in its launch bays. Deploying second wave. Attack pattern 7. More drones flooded into the battle space. These ones were different from the first wave. They carried shaped charges designed to penetrate heavy armor. Working in groups of 10, they attached themselves to Hive ships like parasites, then detonated simultaneously. Entire sections of enemy vessels exploded outward into space. On the bridge of the Defiant, Emma monitored the drone network's performance. Admiral, the machine learning algorithms are performing perfectly. Every time the Hive adapts to one tactic, the drones shift to a different approach. The enemy cannot predict our movements. The battle that the Council said humanity could not win was turning into a massacre. Hive ships tried to flee, but found themselves boxed in by asteroids and surrounded by human forces. Some tried to fight back, but their weapons fired without coordination. They hit each other as often as they hit drones. Kyle allowed himself a small smile. Launch missiles. Let's end this. From tubes along the hulls of every human warship, missiles streaked into space. These were not sophisticated weapons with guidance systems and AI targeting. They were simple, almost primitive in design. just explosive warheads on rocket engines. But when thousands of them filled space around a confused enemy fleet, sophistication did not matter. Volume of fire did. The Hive scout fleet tried to reform, tried to coordinate through the jamming signals. Some ships managed to break free from the asteroid belt and attempted to retreat. The human fleet pursued them, railguns firing continuously. Drones swarmed any ship that tried to escape. 4 hours after the battle began, it was over. 300 Hive ships drifted as debris, torn apart by weapons the Council had called primitive. 100 ships had managed to escape, fleeing back toward the outer system. The human fleet let them go. Kyle wanted survivors to carry the message back to the hive mind. Earth was not easy prey. Human casualties were minimal. 47 drones destroyed, 2 destroyers with minor hull damage. 0 human deaths. It was a victory beyond anyone's expectations. On the bridge of the Defiant, the crew remained silent. They had won, but everyone knew this was just the beginning. This had been a scout force. The real Hive fleet would be much larger. Lieutenant Megan Carter broke the silence. "Admiral, we are receiving transmissions from across the galaxy. News networks, military channels, even some council representatives. Everyone wants to know what happened here." Kyle stood from his command chair and straightened his uniform. "Send them the battle recordings. Let the galaxy see what humans can do. And prepare a message for the Galactic Council." Minutes later, Kyle's face appeared on screens across thousands of worlds. "This is Admiral Kyle Jennings of the Earth Defense Force. Today, the Hive entered our system with 500 vessels. They expected an easy victory. They were wrong. We destroyed 300 ships and sent the rest running. This is what happens when humans say, 'Fine, we will do it ourselves.'" The transmission ended, but its impact spread across the galaxy like a shockwave. Species that had fought the Hive for years and lost every battle watched the recordings in disbelief. The humans, dismissed as too primitive, had achieved what seemed impossible. They had beaten the Hive. On the Galactic Council station, Vexthar and the other representatives watched the battle footage in silence. The crystal being's body flickered with colors that meant shame. Sella's scales turned pale white, the Zentari expression of shock. Finally, Glow spoke. "We should contact Earth again. Request a..." The victory celebrations on Earth lasted 3 days. Cities lit up with fireworks. People danced in the streets. For 3 days, humanity believed they had won, that the Hive had been defeated, that Earth was safe. Admiral Kyle Jennings knew better. He stood in the command center beneath Geneva, staring at sensor data from the edge of the solar system. He had not slept properly in 5 days. He could not stop thinking about the numbers. "Show me the projections again," Kyle said to Commander Emma Flores. Emma pulled up a holographic display that made everyone in the room go quiet. It showed the Hive's main fleet, the force that had been conquering the galaxy for decades. Intelligence estimates put the fleet size at 40,000 vessels. Maybe more. "They are coming," Emma said quietly. "Long-range sensors detected movement 2 days ago. They will arrive in 1 week." Kyle looked around the command center. Every senior officer of Earth's defense forces was here. Admirals, generals, scientists, and engineers. They had gathered to plan for what came next. 1 week. That gives us time to repair our damaged ships, reload ammunition, and reprogram the drones based on what we learned from the first battle. Colonel Brandon Chase spoke up from his station. "Admiral, we destroyed 300 Hive ships with minimal losses. That is a victory ratio of 300 to 0. Even if the main fleet has 40,000 ships, the mathematics suggest we can win." "Mathematics suggests nothing," Kyle replied sharply. The scouts were confused and disorganized. The main fleet will be led by an ancient hive mind that has personally consumed 17 civilizations. It has centuries of combat experience. It knows we used signal jamming. It will adapt. Dr. Kate Sullivan entered the command center, carrying a datapad with new research. "Admiral, we analyzed the scout ships we destroyed. The Hive is already adapting. We found redundant neural pathways in their tissue, backup systems that could resist jamming. The main fleet will be much harder to disrupt." The room fell silent. The confidence from the first victory began to fade as reality set in. 40,000 ships. Even with Earth's entire fleet and all the drones they could build in a week, the odds were impossible. Captain Ryan Mitchell broke the silence. So we need a new strategy. The signal jamming worked once, but it will not work as well the second time. What else do we have? Kyle walked to the holographic display and stared at it for a long moment. We have preparation. We have 7 days to turn the entire Sol system into the most dangerous place in the galaxy. If the Hive wants to consume Earth, they will pay a price that makes every other battle they have fought look easy. Over the next week, every person in the solar system who could work did work. Construction crews built weapons platforms and automated defense stations. Ships that had been damaged in the first battle were repaired and upgraded. New drones rolled off production lines every hour. But the most important work happened in secret. Kyle had assembled a team of the best military strategists, scientists, and engineers Earth had. Their job was simple, but terrifying. Find a way to kill 40,000 ships with fewer than 1,000. Lieutenant Alex Morgan presented the first part of the plan. We cannot fight them in open space. They outnumber us too badly. But we do not have to fight them in open space. We can weaponize the entire system. Alex pulled up a map of the Sol system and began marking locations. Every planet, every moon, every asteroid belt becomes a trap. We seed space with mines, drones, and weapons platforms. We use the gravity wells of planets to create ambush points. We make them fight through layers of defenses, bleeding them with every kilometer they advance. Colonel Amy Parker added details to the plan. We sacrifice the outer system. Let them take the Kuiper Belt and Neptune without a fight. But between Neptune and Earth, we put everything we have. 50,000 mines hidden in the debris fields. 100,000 drones waiting in low power mode. Every rock big enough to hide a weapons platform gets one. Kyle listened to the plan and felt a cold understanding settle over him. You are describing a fighting retreat. We give ground slowly, making them pay for every meter. By the time they reach Earth, they are exhausted and reduced in numbers. Exactly, Ryan said. The Council tried to fight the Hive in single massive battles. They lost. We turned the entire approach to Earth into one continuous battle that lasts weeks. We never give them a moment to rest or regroup. Emma brought up drone statistics. We have increased production to maximum capacity. By the time the Hive arrives, we will have 200,000 combat drones ready. We lose them by the thousands, but keep replacing them faster than the Hive can destroy them. Kate added her research. The signal jamming will be less effective, but it will still work partially. We can slow their coordination even if we cannot stop it completely. And I have been working on a new weapon, a biological agent that attacks Hive tissue specifically. We can deploy it through missiles and drones. Kyle studied the plan from every angle. It was desperate. It relied on everything working perfectly. If the Hive adapted faster than expected, if production facilities were destroyed, if any part of the defense failed, Earth would fall. But it was the only plan that had any chance of success. Do it, Kyle ordered. Every person, every resource goes toward this. Nothing else matters. On the 5th day of preparation, the Galactic Council sent another transmission. This time, it was not just Vexthar and Sella. It was the entire council, all 12 species represented. They appeared on screen together, a unified front. Glow spoke first. Admiral Jennings, the council has reviewed your victory against the Hive Scouts. We were wrong to dismiss humanity. We request a formal alliance. Kyle looked at the council members. A week ago, he might have felt satisfaction at hearing those words. Now he just felt tired. The Hive main fleet will arrive in 2 days. Your offer of alliance comes too late to help Earth. Vexthar's crystal body pulsed with urgent light. We can send ships. Not many. Our fleets are scattered, but we can send some. 100 ships. Maybe 200. It is not much, but keep your ships, Kyle interrupted. Use them to defend your own worlds. Earth will handle the Hive ourselves. Sella's scales showed desperate patterns. Admiral, please. 40,000 ships. You cannot win. Kyle smiled, but it was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had accepted an impossible task, and decided to try anyway. The council told us we were too primitive to fight the hive, too young, too weak. Maybe you were right, but humans have survived extinction before by being too stubborn to die. We have faced predators stronger than us since we lived in caves. We are still here. The predators are not. The transmission ended, leaving the council in silence. They had offered help, and humanity had refused. Some species saw it as pride, others saw it as madness. A few saw it for what it truly was. Humans preparing to fight on their terms, not anyone else's terms. The hive main fleet entered the Sol system like a dark cloud blotting out the stars. 40,000 ships, each one a nightmare of organic tissue and pulsing bioluminescence. They moved with purpose and terrible coordination. This was not a scout force sent to explore. This was an invasion force sent to consume. At the center of the fleet floated the Ancient Mind, a vessel so large it had its own gravity field. This was the consciousness that had destroyed 17 civilizations. It had lived for 3,000 years, growing stronger with every world consumed. It had fought the greatest warriors the galaxy had ever produced. It had won every time. The Ancient Mind reached out with its telepathic senses, feeling for the minds of the prey species that dared to resist. It found nothing. No biological thoughts, no living consciousness coordinating the defenses. Only the cold, empty signals of machines. For the first time in centuries, the Ancient Mind felt something like curiosity. On the bridge of the Defiant, hidden in the shadow of Saturn's rings, Admiral Kyle Jennings watched the enemy fleet approach. He had positioned his flagship far from the outer defensive perimeters. Not to hide, but to observe. To learn. To adapt. They are moving through the Kuiper Belt, Lieutenant Megan Carter reported. No resistance encountered. They are proceeding at full speed toward Neptune. Let them, Kyle said. The outer system is bait. We want them to feel confident. We want them to think this will be easy. The Hive fleet passed Neptune without slowing. They detected some sensor platforms and destroyed them casually, barely noticing the effort. They moved into the space between Neptune and Uranus, still maintaining perfect formation. Then the first mines detonated. Humanity had seeded this region of space with 50,000 proximity mines, each one hidden in the debris field, and programmed to activate only when hive ships came within range. The explosions lit up the darkness like a chain of small suns. Hundreds of hive ships took damage. Not enough to destroy them, but enough to slow them down. Enough to make them cautious. The Ancient Mind sent out mental commands, and the fleet began scanning for more mines. They found thousands more and began destroying them carefully. They are adapting, Emma Flores said, slowing down to clear the minefields. Good, Kyle replied. That buys us time. Phase 2, execute. Between Uranus and Jupiter, weapons platforms that had been floating dormant suddenly powered up. These were not sophisticated systems with AI targeting. They were simple turrets with railguns, programmed to fire at anything that moved. 1,000 platforms opened fire simultaneously. The Hive fleet encountered a wall of metal slugs traveling at relativistic speeds. More ships took damage. The Ancient Mind ordered a formation change, spreading the fleet out to make targeting harder. But that played into the human plan. A spread-out fleet was easier to separate and overwhelm. Launch the first drone wave, Kyle ordered. From hidden positions throughout the asteroid belt, 20,000 drones activated and began moving toward the Hive fleet. These were the old models, the ones designed for the first battle. The Hive had seen them before and knew how to fight them. That was exactly what Kyle wanted. The Hive fleet engaged the drones with practiced efficiency. Their organic weapons fired beams of energy and projectiles of compressed biomass. Drones exploded by the hundreds, by the thousands. The Ancient Mind felt satisfaction. These machines were no threat. Then the second wave of drones arrived. These were different. Faster. Smarter. Equipped with the new biological weapons Kate Sullivan had developed. They got close to Hive ships and released clouds of nanobots programmed to attack organic tissue. Hive ships began to rot from the outside in, their hulls dissolving. Signal jamming. Activate now, Kyle commanded. Across the solar system, satellites began broadcasting interference signals. The effect was less dramatic than in the first battle. The Hive had adapted, built redundant neural pathways. But the jamming still worked partially. The ancient mind's control over the fleet became slower, less precise. Ships took seconds longer to respond to commands instead of reacting instantly. The battle turned into a grinding war of attrition. The Hive fleet pushed forward, destroying mines, weapons platforms, and drones. But every kilometer cost them ships. Every hour of fighting reduced their numbers. Human defenses fell back slowly, making the Hive fight through layer after layer of prepared positions. Colonel Brandon Chase coordinated the retreat from Mars. All defensive stations in the Jupiter sector have been evacuated, activating self-destruct protocols now. Across Jupiter's orbit, weapons platforms exploded simultaneously. The Hive fleet had just reached them and found themselves caught in a field of debris and radiation. It was a tactic as old as warfare itself. Scorched Earth. Leave nothing for the enemy to use. Days passed. The battle continued without pause. The Hive fleet that had entered the system with 40,000 ships was down to 30,000, then 25,000. The ancient mind realized with growing anger that it was losing, not through defeat in combat, but through constant attrition, death by 1,000 cuts. The human fleet had barely engaged directly. They struck from ambush positions, then retreated before the Hive could respond. They used hit-and-run tactics, never staying in one place long enough to be surrounded. They fought like Earth's ancient humans had fought, like guerrilla warriors hiding in the jungle, striking and disappearing. The ancient mind ordered a change in strategy. Stop chasing the human fleet. Drive directly toward Earth. Force them to defend their homeworld in open battle. The Hive fleet pushed through the Mars orbit and headed straight for Earth. 20,000 ships remained, still more than enough to consume a planet. The ancient mind reached out with its senses and found Earth ahead, a blue and green jewel in the darkness. Billions of mines. So much biomass to absorb. Victory was close. Then they reached the moon's orbit, and the final trap was sprung. Kyle had positioned his entire fleet in a sphere around Earth, hidden behind the moon and thousands of satellites. 150,000 drones waited in formation, the largest concentration of automated weapons ever assembled. As the Hive fleet entered range, everything activated at once. All ships, all drones, all weapons, Kyle ordered. Fire everything. The space around Earth turned into a storm of violence. Railguns fired until their barrels glowed red. Missiles streaked in every direction. Drones swarmed the Hive ships like angry bees protecting their hive. Energy weapons built into satellites added their fire to the chaos. The ancient mind realized too late that it had been manipulated. The humans had never intended to defend the outer system. They had intended to draw the Hive fleet into a killing field right at Earth's doorstep. Every retreat had been calculated. Every defensive position had been designed to herd the Hive toward this place. The battle lasted 12 hours. It was vicious and desperate. The Defiant took heavy damage, its armor scarred and hull breached in 3 places. The carrier Valkyrie was destroyed, its crew evacuating in escape pods. Dozens of human ships were lost. But when the sun rose over Earth the next morning, the Hive fleet was gone. 20,000 ships reduced to debris floating in orbit. The ancient mind, the consciousness that had lived for 3,000 years, was dead. Its massive vessel split into pieces, leaking organic fluids that froze in the vacuum. On the bridge of the damaged Defiant, Kyle sat in his command chair and allowed himself to feel the exhaustion. They had won. Against impossible odds, against an enemy that had never lost, humanity had won. "Get me a channel to the Galactic Council," Kyle said quietly. When Vexthar appeared on screen, his crystal body was dim with disbelief. "Admiral Jennings, the sensors detected. Is it true? Did you destroy the ancient mind?" "Yes," Kyle said. "The Hive main fleet is gone. Earth is safe." Silence filled the transmission. Then Vexthar spoke again, his voice different than it had ever been. Respectful. On behalf of the Galactic Council, I apologize for our earlier judgment. Humanity has proven to be the most formidable warriors in the galaxy. Kyle smiled tiredly. We are not warriors. We are survivors. And when someone tells us we are not good enough, we work harder. When someone tells us a task is impossible, we try anyway. That is what humans do. That is what we have always done. The transmission ended. Kyle looked at his crew, at the tired faces of people who had not slept in days. Begin repair operations, start recycling the drone materials, and send a message to every ship, every station, every person who fought. Tell them Earth thanks them. As news of the victory spread, the galaxy watched in awe. The species that had been dismissed as primitive had accomplished what the great civilizations could not. They had stopped the hive, not by being stronger, not by being more advanced, but by being clever, determined, and absolutely refusing to give up. Across the cosmos, species reconsidered their understanding of humanity. Some wanted alliances, some wanted to study human tactics, some simply wanted to stay on humanity's good side. On Earth, people celebrated. They cried and laughed and held each other. They had faced extinction and survived. They had been told to run away, and instead, they had stood and fought. Admiral Kyle Jennings looked at the stars from his damaged ship and thought about the future. The hive would recover eventually. There would be other threats. But now the galaxy knew the truth. When humans said, "Fine, we will do it ourselves," they meant it. And that made all the difference. On Earth, people looked at the stars with fear and hope mixed together. They knew what was coming. Everyone knew. The news broadcasts showed the numbers. 40,000 ships against fewer than 1,000. Impossible odds. But people remembered their history. Humans had faced impossible odds before. At Thermopylae, at the Alamo, at Dunkirk. Sometimes they lost. But sometimes, when everything seemed hopeless, humans found a way to win. Admiral Kyle Jennings stood on the bridge of the Defiant as the deadline approached. His fleet was positioned throughout the solar system in carefully planned defensive layers. Millions of mines floated in the darkness. Hundreds of thousands of drones waited in silence. Weapons platforms orbited every major planet and moon. "Status?" Kyle asked. Emma checked her displays. All defensive systems are operational. Drone network is fully deployed. Long-range sensors have confirmed the Hive fleet's position. They will cross into the outer system in 6 hours. Kyle opened a channel to every ship, every station, every defensive position in the Sol system. This is Admiral Jennings. In 6 hours, the Hive arrives with a fleet designed to consume entire civilizations. They expect us to surrender or to die quickly. They are wrong. Today, we show the galaxy what happens when you tell humans they are not good enough. Today, we fight not just for Earth but for every species that has ever been dismissed or underestimated. Today, we prove that determination and intelligence matter more than size and strength. All stations, prepare for battle. The real war begins now. Meeting. Vexthar's voice was quiet. They will refuse. Then we offer them something they cannot refuse, Sela said. Technology, resources, alliance on equal terms. Equal? Vexthar questioned. After what we just witnessed, I am not certain we are their equals anymore. On Earth, celebrations erupted in every city. 12 billion humans cheered and cried with relief. They had faced the monster that terrified the galaxy, and they had won. Not because they were stronger or more advanced, but because they were human, because they refused to give up, because when someone told them they were not good enough, they worked harder to prove them wrong. Me think different. As the human fleet moved into position, Kyle sent one more transmission to the Galactic Council. This is Admiral Kyle Jennings of the Earth Defense Force. The Hive has entered our system. We are engaging. To the Council, watch and learn. To the Hive, welcome to Earth. The Hive scout fleet continued moving deeper into the Sol system. They had consumed 100 worlds and defeated the galaxy's greatest civilizations. They expected Earth to be easy. Another primitive species to add to the collective. Another planet to strip clean. They had no idea they were flying into a trap designed by the most dangerous species in the galaxy. A species that had spent millions of years being weaker, slower, and more fragile than every predator on their planet. A species that survived by being smart, ruthless, and creative. The hive was about to learn a lesson that every predator on Earth eventually learned. Humans were not strong, but they were dangerous. Kate Sullivan added, "And while they adapt to our weapons, we will be disrupting their coordination. We turn their greatest strength into their greatest weakness." Kyle looked at each person in the room. "The Council thinks we are too primitive to matter. They think we will die quietly while they retreat to safety. They have no idea what humans are capable of when we decide to handle things ourselves. So let's show them. Let's show the entire galaxy what happens when you tell humanity they are not good enough." The meeting ended with everyone returning to their duties. Ships continued being built. Drones continued being programmed. Weapons continued being tested. All across the Sol system, 12 billion humans worked together with a single purpose: survival. The hive was coming, but humanity was ready. "Now," Daniel said, "we go home. We tell Earth that we are on our own, and we get to work. If the Council will not help us, then we will help ourselves. Humanity has faced extinction before. We survived. We will survive this too." Ryan Mitchell smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had just been challenged and planned to prove everyone wrong. "So we do it ourselves." "Yes," Daniel said. "We do it ourselves." The delegation left the Council station and boarded their ship. As they flew away from the massive structure that housed the galaxy's most powerful civilizations, every human on board felt the same thing: determination, anger, and something else. A strange kind of excitement. The Council thought humans were too weak to matter. They thought Earth was not worth defending. They thought humanity would just run away and hide. They were about to learn how wrong they were,